Hello everyone, welcome to tonight's story. Your likes and subscriptions can give me hope to create better stories and let me know what changes you'd like me to make to my voice. Alright, now let's get to tonight's story. Chapter 1. The Evening Preparation. Above the sleeping world, where the air grows thin and the stars begin their ancient dance, there lived a gentle soul known as the Cloud Gardener. His name was Nimbus, and he had tended the sky gardens for countless centuries, though he appeared no older than a man in the prime of his life. His hair was silver like moonbeams, and his eyes held the soft grey of morning mist. Tonight, like every night for the past 300 years, he would begin his sacred work of shaping dreams. The Cloud Gardener's home was built upon a platform of crystallized air, invisible to those below, but solid as marble beneath his feet. It drifted slowly across the heavens, following the ancient currents that had guided cloud shepherds since time immemorial. The walls of his dwelling were made from compressed cloud essence, soft to the touch, yet strong enough to withstand the gentlest storms. Windows opened in all directions, offering views of the vast sky ocean that stretched endlessly in every direction. As twilight painted the horizon in shades of lavender and gold, Nimbus moved through his evening preparations with the grace of long practice. He walked barefoot across floors that felt like walking on silk, his steps making no sound in the hushed atmosphere of his celestial home. The temperature here was always perfect, neither warm nor cool, as if the very air had been kissed by contentment itself. Had not died from the lightning, but had been transformed, its wood becoming light as a feather, yet strong as steel. The bristles of Whisperwind were woven from the silk of clouds themselves, each strand finer than spider silk and more durable than iron wire. Beside Whisperwind rested Gentle Touch, a smaller brush carved from driftwood that had floated in the North Sea for exactly 100 years. This wood had been shaped by countless tides, smoothed by salt water and caressed by northern winds, until it achieved a perfect balance of strength and sensitivity. Viking craftsmen had found this wood in the year 1204 and had recognized its special properties immediately. They carved it with reverence, knowing they were creating something that would outlast their own civilization. The third brush, Dreamweaver, was perhaps the most precious of all. Its handle had been carved from a piece of amber that contained a perfectly preserved flower from the age of dinosaurs. This amber had been discovered by Chinese scholars during the Ming Dynasty, who understood its significance and spent 30 years carefully crafting it into a brush handle. The bristles of Dreamweaver were made from the down of clouds that had never touched the earth, clouds that had existed in the highest reaches of the atmosphere since the world was young. As Nimbus selected his brushes for the night's work, he reflected on the ancient art he practiced. Cloud gardening was one of the oldest professions in the world. The art had begun in ancient Mesopotamia, where the first shepherds had noticed that certain cloud formations brought their flocks more peaceful sleep. These observant shepherds had learned to read the sky like others read books, understanding which clouds brought restful dreams and which brought nightmares. Over generations, the most gifted of these shepherds had learned not just to read the clouds, but to shape them. The secret had been passed down through centuries, from the shepherds of Babylon to the astronomers of Alexandria, from the monks of Tibet to the weather watchers of the Andes Mountains. Each culture had added its own understanding to the art, creating a rich tapestry of knowledge about the connection between sky and dreams. Nimbus had learned the art from an elderly woman named Celeste, who had tended the clouds over the Mediterranean Sea for 200 years. She had found him as a young man, lost in a storm in the Swiss Alps in the year 1725. He had been studying the clouds, trying to understand why some brought him peace, while others made him restless. Celeste had recognized in him the rare gift of sky sight, the ability to see the true nature of clouds beyond their physical appearance. For 50 years, Nimbus had apprenticed under Celeste's gentle guidance. She had taught him that clouds were not merely water vapor suspended in air, but living expressions of the Earth's emotions. Each cloud carried within it the dreams and hopes of everything below. A cloud that formed over a field of sunflowers carried the joy of their golden faces turned toward the sun. A cloud that gathered above a forest held the deep wisdom of ancient trees. The art of cloud gardening was not about forcing clouds into unnatural shapes, but about helping them fulfill their deepest nature. Just as a gardener on Earth might prune a rosebush to help it bloom more beautifully, a cloud gardener shaped the sky formations to help them express their most peaceful and dream-inspiring qualities. Nimbus had inherited this responsibility when Celeste had finally decided to rest. Dissolving peacefully into a sunset cloud over the island of Crete, he still felt her presence sometimes, in the way the wind whispered through his brushes, or in the particularly beautiful cloud formations that seemed to shape themselves without his help. As he prepared for the night's work, Nimbus followed the same ritual he had observed for 3 centuries. First, he would light the lamp of stars, a small crystal globe that contained actual starlight captured from the constellation Lyra. This lamp provided just enough light to work by without disturbing the natural darkness that encouraged dreams below. The lamp sat on a pedestal carved from a meteorite that had fallen to Earth during the Tang dynasty in China. Chinese astronomers of that era had understood that meteorites carried with them the peace of deep space, and they had shaped this particular piece into a perfect cylinder over the course of many years. When lit, the lamp of stars cast a gentle, silvery light that made everything in Nimbus's workshop seem to glow with inner peace. Next, Nimbus would prepare his palette of cloud essences. These were stored in bottles made from crystallized raindrops, each one perfectly transparent and cool to the touch. The bottles had been gifted to him by the rain spirits of the Amazon basin, who had compressed thousands of raindrops into solid crystal over the course of many decades. The first essence was pure serenity, a substance that looked like liquid moonlight and felt like silk when touched. This essence was distilled from clouds that formed over perfectly still mountain lakes at dawn, when the air was so calm that not even the smallest ripple disturbed the water's surface. When added to any cloud formation, that pure serenity would spread through it like ink through water, bringing a profound sense of peace to anyone who saw the cloud or felt its shadow. The second essence was gentle dreams, which appeared as a soft, opalescent mist that seemed to contain tiny sparkles of light. This essence came from clouds that gathered over fields where children played, absorbing their laughter and innocent joy. When brushed into a cloud, gentle dreams would ensure that anyone sleeping beneath would have only the most pleasant and restful visions. The third essence was deep rest, a substance so subtle it was almost invisible. Like heat shimmers on a summer road, this essence was collected from clouds that hung motionless over libraries and monasteries, places where generations of quiet contemplation had infused the very air with peace. Deep rest encouraged not just sleep, but the kind of profound slumber that allowed the body and mind to heal completely. The fourth essence was sweet remembrance, which looked like golden honey made of light. This came from clouds that drifted over places where happy memories had been made, gardens where lovers had walked, parks where families had picnicked, beaches where children had built sandcastles. Sweet remembrance ensured that dreams would be filled not with fears or anxieties, but with the warmest and most comforting memories. The fifth and most precious essence was infinite peace, appearing as a substance that seemed to contain entire galaxies in miniature. This essence could only be collected during the rarest of atmospheric conditions, when clouds formed perfect spirals that mirrored the shape of the Milky Way itself. Such clouds appeared perhaps once in a generation, and the essence they provided could bring peace to the most troubled dreams. As Nimbus arranged his essences in the order he would use them, he thought about the children sleeping in the villages far below. He had been watching over many of these families for generations, seeing children grow into adults, then watching their own children sleep peacefully under his cloud gardens. There was young Emma in the village of Millbrook, who had been having nightmares about starting school. Tonight, he would shape a cloud that looked like a gentle lamb to drift over her house, infused with essence of gentle dreams, to turn her worries into visions of making new friends. In the city of Hartford, old Mr. Patterson was having trouble sleeping since his wife had passed away last spring. Nimbus had been gradually working on a cloud formation that would bring dreams of their happiest times together, using sweet remembrance to help the lonely man find peace in his memories rather than sorrow. There was also Maria, the young mother in Barcelona, who worked 2 jobs and fell asleep exhausted every night, too tired to dream at all. For her, Nimbus had been crafting clouds infused with deep rest, ensuring that her few hours of sleep would be so profoundly restorative that she would wake feeling as refreshed as if she had slept for days. The art of cloud gardening required not just skill with brushes and essences, but a deep understanding of human nature. Nimbus spent his days observing the world below through a special telescope made from crystallized air, watching the rhythms of human life and learning to read the signs that told him who needed what kind of dreams. A cloud that brought peaceful dreams to one person might cause restlessness in another. The key was understanding each individual's unique dream language, the particular combination of images, feelings, and memories that would bring them the deepest peace. Some people dreamed best when they saw vast open skies, while others needed the comfort of enclosed, cozy spaces. Some found peace in dreams of moving water, while others preferred the stillness of deep forests. Children might make them more able to dream. Nimbus had learned were the easiest to help. Their minds were still open and flexible, ready to accept whatever dreams came to them. A simple cloud shaped like their favorite animal, infused with just a touch of gentle dreams, was usually enough to ensure a night of peaceful sleep. Adults were more complex, carrying with them years of worries, regrets, and anxieties that could interfere with even the most skillfully crafted dream clouds. For them, Nimbus often had to work for weeks or even months, gradually introducing elements that would help their minds learn to accept peace. He might start with clouds that carried just the faintest whisper of serenity, slowly increasing the strength as their subconscious minds grew accustomed to the feeling. Elderly people presented their own unique challenges and opportunities. Their minds were often filled with a lifetime of memories, some joyful and some painful. The key was helping them dream of their happiest memories while allowing the difficult ones to fade into the background. For them, Nimbus used sweet remembrance with great care, selecting only the most golden memories to enhance, while letting others remain untouched. As the last light of sunset faded from the western horizon, Nimbus completed his preparations. His brushes were clean and ready, his essences arranged in perfect order, and his mind was calm and focused. He stepped out onto the observation deck of his sky home, feeling the gentle evening breeze ruffle his silver hair. The night sky stretched before him like a vast canvas, already beginning to fill with the first stars. Far below, the lights of cities and towns twinkled like earthbound constellations, each light representing someone who would soon be settling down to sleep. The responsibility felt both immense and intimate, as if he were being trusted with the dreams of every person below. Nimbus took a deep breath of the thin, pure air and felt the familiar sense of purpose settle over him like a comfortable cloak. This was his calling, his gift to the world, and he approached it with the same reverence that a priest might feel entering a sacred temple. He picked up Whisperwind, the largest of his brushes, and dipped it lightly in pure serenity. The essence clung to the cloud silk bristles like liquid starlight, ready to be shaped into beauty. Above him, the first clouds of evening were beginning to form, drawn by the cooling air and the earth's patient breathing. Tonight, like every night for the past 300 years, the cloud gardener would work until dawn, shaping dreams and nurturing peace. The world below would sleep soundly, never knowing that far above them, gentle hands were painting the sky with love. Chapter 2. The night's work begins. As the first stars emerged, like shy children peeking through a curtain, Nimbus began his nightly meditation. Standing at the edge of his sky platform, he closed his eyes and extended his consciousness downward, feeling for the collective rhythm of the sleeping world below. This was perhaps the most delicate part of his work, requiring him to attune himself to the dreams and hopes of millions of people spread across continents and time zones. The sensation was like listening to a vast orchestra during warm-up, with thousands of instruments playing different melodies that would gradually harmonize into something beautiful. Each sleeping mind contributed its own note to this symphony of dreams. From the fishing villages along the coast of Maine, he could sense the dreams of sailors' wives, their hopes for calm seas and safe returns. Their dreams carried the scent of salt air and the rhythmic sound of waves against wooden hulls. These dreams needed clouds shaped like gentle harbors, infused with the essence of deep rest to carry away their worries about storms and rough weather. Further inland, in the farming communities of Iowa, he felt the dreams of people who lived by the seasons, their sleep patterns as regular as sunrise and sunset. Their dreams were filled with images of golden wheat fields, red barns, and clear blue skies. For them, he would craft clouds that moved slowly and deliberately across the sky, like the patient progress of growing things. From the bustling cities, the dream rhythm was more complex and sometimes discordant. Urban dwellers often carried the stress of their days into their sleep, their dreams fragmented by the memory of car horns, deadline pressures, and crowded subway cars. These dreams required more delicate handling, clouds infused with multiple essences to address the various layers of tension and anxiety. Nimbus had learned over the centuries that each region of the world had its own dream character, shaped by geography, culture, and climate. People who lived near mountains dreamed differently from those who lived by the sea. Desert dwellers had different dream needs than those who lived in lush forests. The cloud gardens he created had to take all of these factors into account. Tonight, his consciousness picked up a particularly strong signal from a small town in Vermont called Willowbrook. Something there was creating a disturbance in the usual dream patterns, like a stone thrown into a still pond. As he focused more closely, he identified the source. The local elementary school was hosting a sleepover in the gymnasium, and 30 children were trying to fall asleep in an unfamiliar place, excited by the adventure, but also slightly homesick. This was exactly the sort of situation that required immediate attention. Children's dreams were powerful and could affect each other, especially. Nimbus smiled softly as he recognized the challenge. Group dream work was one of the most rewarding aspects of his profession. When done properly, he could create a shared dream experience that would become a treasured memory for all the children involved. He selected Dreamweaver, the brush made with the ancient amber handle, and dipped it carefully in gentle dreams. The opalescent essence swirled around the bristles like liquid light, ready to be shaped into something magical. Above him, a small cumulus cloud was forming, drawn by the evening's thermal currents. It was perfect for his purposes, small enough to position precisely over the school, but large enough to influence all the sleeping children below. Working with smooth, flowing strokes, Nimbus began to shape the cloud into the form of a great, gentle elephant. He had chosen this shape because elephants appeared in the folklore of many cultures as symbols of wisdom, memory, and protection. The children would unconsciously recognize these associations, even if they couldn't consciously identify the cloud's shape in their dreams. As he worked, Nimbus infused the cloud elephant with memories of the most peaceful bedtime stories ever told. He drew these memories from the ether itself, where all human experiences eventually settled like sediment in a vast ocean. There were stories told by grandmothers in rocking chairs, tales shared by firelight on camping trips, and gentle fairy tales whispered by loving parents. The elephant's trunk he shaped to curl protectively around the cloud's body, suggesting the way a mother elephant might comfort her young. Into this trunk he brushed essence of sweet remembrance, so that each child would dream of feeling perfectly safe and loved, surrounded by the warmth of family and home, even though they were sleeping away from their own beds. The elephant's ears he made large and fan-like, and into them he brushed pure serenity, so that the cloud would absorb any fear. The elephant's eyes he crafted with special care, making them kind and wise. Into these eyes he placed essence of infinite peace, the rarest and most precious of his materials. These eyes would watch over the children throughout the night, ensuring that their shared dream remained gentle and nurturing. As Nimbus worked, he began to hum an ancient lullaby that had been passed down among cloud gardeners for generations. The melody was older than any written music, a tune that seemed to emerge naturally from the rhythm of wind and breathing. The sound helped him focus his concentration and also infused the cloud with harmonic vibrations that would translate into peaceful dreams. The lullaby had no words in any human language, but its meaning was universal. Sleep now, little ones. You are safe. You are loved. Tomorrow will bring new adventures, but tonight is for rest and dreams. The melody seemed to make the cloud elephant's form more solid and purposeful, as if the music itself was helping to hold the shape together. As he put the finishing touches on the elephant cloud, Nimbus guided it gently through the sky toward Vermont. The cloud moved slowly and purposefully, following the air currents that would take it directly over Willowbrook Elementary School. He watched through his crystalline telescope as it approached the building, its shape clearly visible in the moonlight. Below in the gymnasium, the 30 children were finally beginning to settle down. Their teacher, Mrs. Henderson, had just finished reading them a story about brave knights and gentle dragons, and now she was moving quietly between the sleeping bags, making sure everyone was comfortable and tucked in. As the elephant cloud passed overhead, Nimbus felt the change begin immediately. The restless energy in the gymnasium began to dissipate like morning mist. One by one, the children stopped whispering to each other and began to drift off to sleep. Their breathing grew deeper and more rhythmic, and their faces relaxed into expressions of peaceful contentment. The dreams that began to form under the elephant cloud's influence were remarkable in their coherence and beauty. All 30 children found themselves sharing the same dream landscape, a vast, magical library with books that told their stories through moving pictures, shelves that rearranged themselves to reveal new adventures, and comfortable reading nooks where they could curl up with their favorite tales. In this dream library, each child discovered a book that was written especially for them, containing all their favourite things and none of their fears. Little Tommy, who was afraid of the dark, found a book full of friendly stars that lit up whenever he felt scared. Sarah, who missed her cat at home, discovered a story about a magical cat who could visit her in dreams whenever she felt lonely. The elephant cloud continued to drift slowly across the sky above the school, its gentle presence ensuring that the shared dream remained stable and beautiful throughout the night. Nimbus watched with satisfaction as the children's sleep deepened and their faces grew even more peaceful. This was why he loved his work. These moments when he could bring pure joy and comfort to innocent hearts. But his night's work was far from over, even as he watched the elephant cloud settle into a slow orbit over the school. His attention was already being drawn to other areas that needed his care. From a hospital in Denver, he sensed the fitful sleep of patients trying to heal. From a retirement home in Florida, he felt the complicated dreams of elderly people processing a lifetime of memories. He turned his attention next to the hospital in Denver, where a young girl named Isabella was recovering from surgery to repair a broken leg she had sustained in a bicycle accident. The girl was brave and cheerful during the day, but at night, her dreams were troubled by fears of falling and getting hurt again. Her parents had been taking turns sleeping in the chair beside her bed, their own rest disturbed by worry for their daughter. For this situation, Nimbus selected Gentle Touch, the brush made from century-old driftwood. This brush was perfect for delicate work, requiring both strength and sensitivity. He dipped it in a combination of essences. Deep rest to help Isabella's body heal more quickly. Gentle dreams to replace her fears with images of safety and joy. And just a touch of sweet remembrance to remind her of all the wonderful times she had riding her bicycle before the accident. Above the hospital, a small cloud was forming in the shape of a perfect spiral, drawn by the building's heating system and the warm emotions of the many people inside who were working to help others heal. Nimbus carefully guided this cloud into the shape of a bicycle made of starlight, its wheels turning slowly and gracefully as it moved across the sky. As he shaped the bicycle cloud, Nimbus infused it with memories of the most joyful bicycle rides ever taken. He drew these from the collective human experience. Children racing down hills with their arms spread like wings. Couples riding side by side through country lanes. Families exploring new neighborhoods together on lazy Sunday afternoons. The bicycle cloud's wheels he made to turn with perfect smoothness, never wobbling or uncertain. Into these wheels he brushed essence of confidence and balance, so that Isabella would dream of riding with perfect control, never afraid of falling. The handlebars he shaped to be steady and reliable, representing the trust between rider and bicycle that makes cycling such a joy. Most importantly, he ensured that in Isabella's dreams, her bicycle would never crash or cause her pain. Instead, it would carry her on wonderful adventures, flying through clouds and racing alongside birds, showing her that bicycles could be sources of pure joy rather than sources of fear. As the bicycle cloud settled over the hospital, Nimbus watched through his telescope as Isabella's troubled sleep began to calm. Her face, which had been tense with worry, began to relax. Her breathing became deeper and more regular. In her dream, she found herself riding the most beautiful bicycle she had ever seen, its frame sparkling like diamonds, and its wheels leaving trails of golden light. In her dream, Isabella rode through landscapes of incredible beauty, meadows full of wildflowers, forests where friendly animals waved as she passed, beaches where the sand was made of crushed pearls and the waves sang lullabies. Most wonderfully, in her dream, she rode with perfect confidence, never wobbling or falling, her bicycle responding to her slightest touch like a trusted friend. The bicycle cloud also influenced the dreams of Isabella's parents, who were sleeping restlessly in chairs beside her bed. They dreamed of watching their daughter riding safely and happily, her laughter ringing like silver bells as she explored beautiful places on her magical bicycle. These dreams gave them the deep, restorative sleep they needed to face another day of helping their daughter heal. As Isabella's dreams stabilized under the influence of the bicycle cloud, Nimbus felt a warm satisfaction spread through his chest. This was another reason he loved his work, the ripple effects of peaceful dreams. When one person slept better, it affected everyone around them. Isabella's improved sleep would help her heal faster. But even as he savoured this success, Nimbus was already sensing the next situation that needed his attention. From a small apartment in Seattle, he felt the restless sleep of a young man named David, who was struggling with insomnia, brought on by the stress of his new job. David had been lying awake for hours, his mind racing with worries about whether he was capable of handling his responsibilities. This was a common problem in the modern world, and one that required a different approach than the innocent dreams of children or the healing dreams of hospital patients. Adult insomnia was often caused by minds that had forgotten how to let go of daily concerns, brains that had become stuck in patterns of worry and anxiety. For David, Nimbus selected his most subtle tools. He chose a brush made from bamboo that had grown for 50 years in a monastery garden in Tibet, absorbing the peaceful vibrations of daily meditation and prayer. This brush was perfect for working with overactive minds, as it carried within its fibers the essence of learned tranquility. Above Seattle, the night sky was partially cloudy, with several small cumulus formations drifting slowly from west to east. Nimbus selected the smallest and most delicate of these clouds, one that looked like a wisp of steam rising from a cup of tea. This cloud was perfect for his purposes, subtle enough not to draw conscious attention, but present enough to influence the atmosphere around David's apartment building. Working with the most delicate touches, Nimbus began to reshape the small cloud into the form of a meditation garden. He drew inspiration from the most peaceful gardens he had observed over his centuries of work. The Zen gardens of Kyoto, with their carefully raked gravel and precisely placed stones. The herb gardens of European monasteries, where monks had cultivated both plants and inner peace. The desert gardens of the American Southwest, where cacti bloomed in stunning profusion despite the harsh environment. The garden cloud was almost invisible to the naked eye, its form so subtle that it looked like a natural atmospheric formation. But to David's unconscious mind, it would appear as the most peaceful place imaginable, a sanctuary where his worried thoughts could finally find rest. into this garden cloud. Nimbus brushed the most calming essences in his collection. He used deep rest as the foundation, creating an atmosphere of such profound tranquility that David's racing mind would have no choice but to slow down. Over this foundation, he layered pure serenity, ensuring that any anxious thoughts that arose would be gently dissolved before they could take root. As the garden cloud settled over David's neighborhood, Nimbus watched the young man's sleep patterns begin to change. David's restless tossing and turning gradually ceased. His clenched jaw relaxed and his furrowed brow smoothed out. Most importantly, his mind began to let go of the day's worries, allowing his natural sleep rhythms to reassert themselves. In his dreams, David found himself walking through the most beautiful garden he had ever seen. Paths of smooth river stones led between beds of flowering herbs that released the most wonderful fragrances when he brushed against them. Small streams of crystal clear water bubbled peacefully throughout the garden, their gentle sounds creating a natural symphony of tranquility. In this dream garden, David discovered that he could simply sit on a comfortable bench and let the garden cloud's influence extended beyond David's apartment to the entire neighborhood. Other residents who had been struggling with various forms of restlessness found their sleep improving as well. Mrs. Chen in the apartment below, who had been worrying about her son's upcoming deployment overseas, dreamed of him surrounded by protective gardens wherever he went. Mr. Rodriguez across the hall, who had been stressed about his mother's declining health, dreamed of her walking through healing gardens where every step restored her strength and vitality. As the night deepened and moved toward its darkest hours, Nimbus continued his gentle work across the sky. Each cloud he shaped was a small masterpiece of care and intention, designed to address the specific needs of the dreamers below. Some clouds he formed into animals that would provide comfort to lonely children. Others he shaped into abstract forms that would inspire creativity in the minds of artists and writers. Still others he left almost natural looking, their influence working entirely through the essences he brushed into their vaporous forms. The work required not just artistic skill and knowledge of human psychology, but also a deep understanding of meteorology and atmospheric science. Each cloud had to be shaped in harmony with the natural weather patterns, so that it would remain stable throughout the night without disrupting the larger atmospheric systems. A cloud gardener who worked against nature rather than with it would find their creations dissolving before they could bring peace to anyone. Nimbus had learned over the centuries to read the sky like a master musician reads a score, understanding how each cloud would interact with wind patterns, temperature gradients, and humidity levels. He knew which formations would hold their shape until dawn, and which would need to be reinforced with additional essence applications throughout the night. As the moon reached its zenith and began its slow descent toward the western horizon, Nimbus paused in his work to survey the sky garden he had been creating. Dozens of carefully crafted clouds drifted across the heavens, each one carrying its cargo of peaceful dreams to the sleeping world below. The elephant cloud still orbited protectively over the Vermont school. The bicycle cloud continued its gentle passage above the Denver hospital, and the meditation garden cloud maintained its subtle watch over the Seattle apartment building. But his night's work was not yet finished. The deepest part of the night was approaching, the time when dreams became most vivid and most powerful. This was when his most delicate and important work would begin, shaping the clouds that would carry people through their deepest sleep and into the gentle dawn of a new day. Chapter 3: The Deepest Dreams. As the night reached its deepest point, when the moon hung like a silver lantern in the star-scattered sky, and the world below breathed in the slow rhythm of profound sleep, Nimbus entered the most sacred phase of his work. This was the time when human consciousness dove to its deepest levels, when the boundary between dreams and the infinite became gossamer thin. During these precious hours, the cloud gardener could reach the very roots of human hope and fear, planting seeds of peace that would bloom not just in dreams, but in waking life as well. The quality of light at this hour was different from any other time. Starlight and moonlight combined to create a silvery illumination that made everything seem suspended between reality and dream. The clouds themselves appeared more ethereal, as if they were made not just of water vapor, but of crystallized thoughts and emotions. This was the perfect time for the most delicate and powerful work of cloud gardening. Nimbus could sense that the sleeping world below had entered the phase of deepest REM sleep, when dreams were most vivid and meaningful. Brainwaves had slowed to their most rhythmic patterns, and the conscious mind's barriers had dissolved completely, allowing the deepest layers of the psyche to surface and express themselves through dreams. From his sky platform, he could feel the collective dream state of the world below, like a vast, gentle sea. Each sleeping person contributed their own currents to this ocean of dreams, creating complex patterns of hope, memory, fear, and desire that swirled together in an ever-changing tapestry. The cloud gardener's role during this time was to serve as a lighthouse, guiding these dream currents toward peaceful harbors. His attention was drawn first to a small cabin in the mountains of Montana, where an elderly man named Samuel was spending what might be his last winter. Samuel had been a teacher for 47 years, dedicating his life to nurturing young minds and helping children discover their potential. Now, at the age of 86, he was facing his own mortality with a mixture of acceptance and regret. Samuel's dreams during this deep phase of night were complex and sometimes troubling. He dreamed of all the students he had taught over the decades, but instead of feeling pride in their achievements, he focused on those he felt he had failed to reach. In his dreams, he wandered through empty classrooms, looking for children who had slipped through the cracks of his attention, students whose potential he feared he had never properly nurtured. For Samuel, Nimbus knew he needed to create something extraordinary, a cloud formation that would help the old teacher understand the true magnitude of his life's impact. He selected his most precious brush, one carved from wood taken from a tree that had grown in the Garden of Gethsemane, its handle worn smooth by 2,000 years of reverent use. Above the Montana mountains, the air was crystal clear and extraordinary. He began by shaping a central cloud into the form of a great tree, its trunk strong and straight, its branches reaching wide in all directions. This was to represent Samuel himself, the steady presence around which so many young lives had grown and flourished. Into the trunk of this cloud tree, Nimbus brushed essence of sweet remembrance, mixed with a rare substance called legacy light, which could only be collected from clouds that formed over schools and libraries where knowledge had been shared for generations. From the main tree cloud, Nimbus began to shape smaller clouds that looked like leaves, each one representing one of Samuel's students. There were thousands of these leaf clouds, for Samuel had taught many children over his long career. Into each leaf, Nimbus brushed memories of the moment when that particular student had experienced a breakthrough in learning. Those magical instants when understanding dawned and a child's face lit up with the joy of disco. The work was intricate and time-consuming, requiring Nimbus to reach into the ether and extract specific memories from the collective human experience. He found the moment when shy little Mary Thompson had finally raised her hand to answer a question in Samuel's third grade class in 1964, her face glowing with pride when she got it right. He captured the instant when troubled teenager Marcus Williams had realized, thanks to Samuel's patient encouragement, that he actually loved literature and wanted to become a writer. He gathered the memory of Elena Rodriguez discovering her talent for mathematics in Samuel's classroom, leading to her eventual career as an engineer. He collected the moment when David Park, who had arrived from Korea speaking no English, finally felt confident enough to share a story with the class about his grandmother's garden, his words halting but filled with such genuine emotion that the entire room fell silent with respect. Thousands of such moments were woven into the leaf clouds, each one a testament to Samuel's gentle influence on young lives. But Nimbus went further, adding to each leaf cloud the ripple effects of Samuel's teaching. Elena's engineering work had led to the design of safer bridges that would protect countless travelers. Marcus's writing had touched the hearts of readers around the world, spreading empathy and understanding. David had become a translator who helped immigrant families communicate with doctors and teachers, breaking down barriers between cultures. As Samuel walked through this dream garden, he began to understand that every plant represented one of his students, and that his years of patient nurturing had created this incredible forest of human potential. He could see how his influence had spread through generations as his students became teachers themselves, parents who read to their children, citizens who approached problems with the critical thinking skills he had taught them. In his dream, Samuel met many of his former students, now grown and successful, who thanked him for believing in them when they couldn't believe in themselves. They showed him the ways his lessons had shaped their lives, not just academically, but morally and emotionally. He saw how his kindness to a struggling child had taught that child to be kind to others, how his patience with difficult students had shown them that they were worthy of patience and care. The tree cloud remained over Samuel's cabin for the rest of the night, ensuring that his deep sleep was filled with recognition of his life's true value. When he would wake in the morning, he would carry with him not regret, but a profound sense of completion and peace. The fear of his approaching death would be replaced by gratitude for a life well lived, and the knowledge that his influence would continue to ripple through the world long after he was gone. While the tree cloud worked its gentle magic over Montana, Nimbus turned his attention to another situation requiring his deepest skills. In a women's shelter in Detroit, a young mother named Grace was trying to rebuild her life after escaping an abusive relationship. She had brought her 3-year-old daughter, Sophie, with her, and both mother and child were struggling with trauma that made peaceful sleep almost impossible. Grace's dreams were often filled with echoes of the violence she had experienced, phantom sounds of angry voices and slamming doors. Sophie, too young to understand what had happened, but old enough to absorb the emotional atmosphere, had nightmares about monsters and scary shadows. Both of them desperately needed healing dreams, visions that would help them process their trauma and begin to believe in the possibility of safety and happiness. This situation required Nimbus's most advanced techniques, for trauma dreams were among the most difficult to heal. The mind's protective mechanisms often resisted attempts to replace frightening dreams with peaceful ones, fearing that letting down its guard would leave the dreamer vulnerable to real harm. The key was to work gradually, not trying to eliminate the scary dreams all at once, slowly introducing elements of safety and protection that would eventually transform the nightmares into empowering visions. For Grace and Sophie, Nimbus created a cloud formation that looked like a great, gentle dragon. He had chosen this form carefully, knowing that dragons in dreams could represent either destruction or protection, depending on how they were crafted. By shaping this dragon with obvious benevolence, kind eyes, a protective posture, breath that sparkled with starlight instead of fire, he could help both mother and daughter begin to see strength and protection as possibilities in their lives. The dragon cloud was enormous, its wings spanning nearly a mile as it took shape in the sky above Detroit. Into its eyes, Nimbus brushed essence of infinite peace, ensuring that anyone who saw this dragon in their dreams would feel absolutely safe and protected. Into its wings, he painted pure serenity, so that the dragon's presence would create an atmosphere of unshakable calm. Most importantly, into the dragon's heart, he placed a special essence called Courage Renewed, a rare substance that could only be collected from clouds that formed over places where people had overcome great difficulties and found strength they never knew they possessed. As the dragon cloud settled over the women's shelter, its influence began to transform the dreams of everyone sleeping there. Grace found herself standing in a beautiful meadow, with the great dragon curled protectively around her and Sophie. In her dream, the dragon spoke to her with a voice like gentle thunder, telling her that she was braver than she knew, stronger than she believed, and worthy of all the love and happiness the world could offer. The dragon showed Grace visions of her future, a small apartment that would be truly her own, decorated with colors she chose and filled with laughter. She saw herself returning to school to finish the nursing degree she had abandoned years ago, her intelligence and compassion making her a natural healer. Most wonderfully, she saw Sophie growing up confident and secure, never doubting her own worth because her mother had shown her what strength looked like. Sophie's dreams were even more magical. In her young mind, the dragon became a playmate and protector who took her flying through clouds made of cotton candy and meadows full of flowers that sang lullabies. The dragon taught her games that built confidence and showed her that she was clever and brave. Most importantly, the dragon helped her understand that the scary things that had happened were in the past, and that her future was full of wonderful adventures and people who would love her. The dragon cloud's influence extended to all the residents of the shelter, each woman and child finding their own version of protection and hope in their dreams. Maria, who had been afraid she would never trust anyone again, dreamed of the dragon introducing her to kind people who proved that not everyone in the world meant harm. Janet, who worried that her teenage son would never respect her after seeing her victimized, dreamed of the dragon helping her son understand her courage in leaving and starting over. As the night continued its slow progression toward dawn, Nimbus worked on cloud formation after cloud formation, each one carefully crafted to address specific needs in the sleeping world below. In Tokyo, he shaped clouds into origami cranes that carried dreams of peace to children whose sleep was disturbed by the stress they absorbed from their overworked parents. In London, he created clouds that looked like double-decker buses made of starlight, bringing dreams of adventure and exploration to elderly people in nursing homes who felt confined by their physical limitations. In the Amazon rainforest, he worked with natural cloud formations that already carried the dreams of indigenous peoples, enhancing them with essences that would help preserve their ancient wisdom for future generations. Over the Sahara Desert, he shaped clouds into the forms of oasis gardens, bringing dreams of abundance and refreshment to nomadic peoples making their way across the vast sands. Each cloud required not just artistic skill, but deep cultural understanding. What brought peaceful dreams to a child in rural Nebraska might cause confusion or fear to a child in urban Bangladesh. Nimbus had spent centuries learning to read the cultural dream languages of different peoples, understanding how symbols and images were interpreted differently across the globe. In Scandinavia, he crafted clouds that looked like the northern lights, knowing that these aurora-shaped formations would carry dreams of wonder and mystery that resonated deeply with people who lived under the Arctic sky. In India, he shaped clouds into lotus blossoms that would bring dreams of spiritual awakening and inner peace. In Australia, he worked with ancient cloud patterns that carried the dreaming songs of Aboriginal peoples, adding his own essences to stories that had been told through dreams for thousands of years. The work was exhausting, but deeply fulfilling. Each successfully shaped cloud represented not just artistic achievement, but genuine healing brought to human hearts. As the night reached its deepest point, Nimbus could feel the collective dream state of the world settling into patterns of greater peace and harmony. But perhaps the most challenging work of the night came when his attention was drawn to a pediatric cancer ward in Children's Hospital of Philadelphia. Here, 23 young patients, ranging in age from 4 to 16, were fighting battles that no child should ever have to face. Their dreams were complicated tangles of hope and fear, innocence and premature wisdom, childhood fantasies mixed with very adult concerns about mortality and suffering. For these children, Nimbus knew he needed to create something unprecedented. Working with clouds alone would not be sufficient. He needed to coordinate with the aurora borealis itself, calling upon the northern lights to dance far south of their usual range and create a spectacular display that would be visible even through the hospital windows. This was advanced cloud gardening that few practitioners had ever attempted. It required not just shaping water vapor, but actually influencing the electromagnetic fields in the upper atmosphere, coaxing charged particles from solar winds to create patterns of light that would work in harmony with the clouds below. Nimbus began by creating a series of small, delicate clouds positioned strategically around the hospital. Each cloud was shaped like a different mythical creature. Phoenixes rising from flames, unicorns with horns that spiraled like DNA helixes, dragons whose scales caught and reflected starlight. These clouds would serve as anchors for the aurora display, helping to focus and direct the northern lights' energy. Working with cosmic forces required a different kind of concentration than ordinary cloud gardening. Nimbus had to extend his consciousness far beyond the Earth's atmosphere, reaching out to touch the solar wind streams that carried charged particles through space. He called upon knowledge passed down through generations of cloud gardeners, techniques learned from Inuit shamans who had worked with the aurora for thousands of years. Slowly, gradually, ribbons of green and blue light began to appear in the sky above Philadelphia, far south of where aurora were ever normally seen. The lights danced and swirled in patterns that seemed almost alive, weaving between Nimbus's carefully positioned clouds to create a display of indescribable beauty. In the cancer ward, night nurses stopped their rounds to stare in wonder at the unprecedented light show outside the windows. Those children who were awake called to their friends to look at the magic in the sky. But the real magic was happening in the dreams of the sleeping children, where the aurora and clouds worked together to create visions of hope and healing. In these dreams, the children found themselves transformed into beings of pure light and energy, no longer limited by their physical bodies or their illnesses. They flew through cosmic landscapes where pain didn't exist, where their spirits were whole and strong and beautiful. They met other children who had faced similar battles, some who had won and some who had found peace in different ways, all of whom shared the message that courage and love were more powerful than any disease. Young Emma, who had been afraid that her chemotherapy would change who she was inside, dreamed of herself as a phoenix, discovering that sometimes you had to be transformed by teenage Sarah, who had been angry about missing normal adolescent experiences, found herself in a dream where she was the captain of a starship crew, made up of other young people who had faced extraordinary challenges. In this dream, she realized that her experiences, though difficult, had given her wisdom and strength that her peers couldn't imagine, qualities that would serve her well throughout her life. The aurora display continued for 3 hours, long enough to influence multiple sleep cycles for all the children in the ward. When it finally faded as natural aurora dew, it left behind a sense of wonder and possibility that would linger in the children's memories for months to come. Many of them would later tell their doctors and families about the beautiful dreams they had during the night when the lights danced in the sky. Dreams that helped them face their treatments with renewed courage and hope. As the deepest part of the night began to give way to the gradual approach of dawn, Nimbus surveyed his night's work with quiet satisfaction. Across the world, millions of people were sleeping more peacefully because of the cloud gardens he had created. Children who had been afraid were now dreaming of adventures and safety. Adults who had been consumed by worry were finding rest and perspective. Elderly people who felt forgotten were dreaming